Good morning, everyone. Uh, Welcome to our Art Flash Assessment training session. I would like to introduce myself prior to start this class. Okay, myself, I'm Rashid. I'm holding Master of Science in Occupational Safety and Health from Columbia Southern University, having more than 19 years of experience in oil and gas design, construction, and operation in different GCC countries, chartered fellowship, certified fire protection specialist, different certifications are in top-rated companies in Qatar as well as in Kuwait. As a volunteer, I have served in the American Society of Safety Professional Kuwait chapter as a president, vice president, and director of GCC HSE Excellence Award. So that's a brief introduction about myself. And since I've been working in oil and gas sector, so and day-to-day basis, we are working in different electrical equipments. So this topic is going to be very interesting related to our subject and our field. So prior to start, I would suggest everybody to make sure that they are not having any kind of disturbance during the session, making sure all the things are clear, follow the emergency. In case an emergency happens, you need to go to the assembly point. If you have any question, please ask the question since you may raise the hand, and then please keep your mobile phone on the silent mode. That's all with that. Remember one thing, this is a very important class, so make sure that you are attentive to the session. So you are getting the things which you are supposed to get it. So I request everybody to make sure that they are on the so I request everybody to be attentive during the class and making sure that you are going to take the things which we are going to learn today. So heading next, this is just like an overall the objective of the session, what we are going to discuss. Remember, gentlemen, this session is typically designed based on the NFPA 70E requirement, whereas clause 3130.5, we are going to discuss about understanding about the arc flash hazards, the how we assess the risk, like the risk assessment, and then risk analysis, risk evaluation, arc flash PPEs, and at the end of the session, we were going to have a summary of this session. So ArcFlash, remember this one is like identification of the hazards. Then you are going through the assessment. So day by day, then as from assessment, then you are having analysis, evaluation, and PPEs. Remember, PPEs is not the first line. It is always the last defensive line of it. So session is about preventing such events and ensuring everyone goes home safe. That is the intention of our session. Okay. So we are going to understand about what are flash hazards. So what assessment is required. So everyone in this session is required to making sure that whenever you are working on any electrical equipment or energized electrical equipment, so what things are required, what needs to be done. So the next is, what is arc flash? Okay. What it comes in your mind when we are talking about arc flash? When it comes as a flash, it's like a violent release of energy. How it is caused? When an electric current leaves its path and travels through the air. That's how. And how then the temperature can like exceed more than 35,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, it's hotter than the surface of the sun. Okay, so an arc flash can be produced by how it can be produced through extremely high temperature. It can produce like intense light, pressure waves, molten metals. Okay, but it occurs within the milliseconds where you don't have any chance to react. So what we need in this case, we need to prevent ourselves. Okay, why prevention is required, and then protection is also critical. when we are talking about the arc flash. So remember this particular thing, that prevention is better. So prevent it and protect yourself when we talk about it. The next is, we now it gives you a clear idea what is arc flash. The next is identification of the arc flash hazards. When we talk about any kind of hazards or risk, okay, the very first step in that is the identification of the hazards. So what is our when we are talking about arc flash? So first comes is identification of the arc flash hazards. Okay. So in this case, what we need to ask ourselves, okay, when we are talking about identification of arc, identify either am I exposed to those energized parts, okay, either I'm working in a normal conditions, normal operating conditions, okay, that task exposure is there with an arc flash potential, okay, it's having an arc flash potential, it's having, then you document all these hazard findings, evaluate the system control, electrical parameters, identify equipment with arc flash potential. That's the labeling, okay. But the first thing, identify. If you have like set parameters, if you are exposed to energized power and you are working in an abnormal condition, does an arc flash exist? If the answer is yes, then the next step that you need to do it. Okay. So that's, you remember, you keep it in your mind. Okay. If no hazard exists, no arc flash control is required. If a hazard exists, then we will move to the next step, which is called the risk assessment. How to identify the arc flash hazard summarized. This is a typical table that I'm sharing with you guys, that it is giving you the different steps by steps. Either am I exposed to energized part, what are the normal operating conditions like the poor installation, maintenance, is there any dust, like such conditions exist there. Then we evaluate the task, okay, to identify the equipment identification, those equipment which are prone to the arc flash, either it is a switchboard, either it's the MCC panel board, okay. And then we talk about the electrical system characteristics, like electrical parameters, either there is an available fault current, clear and time, voltage level, working distance, hazardous conditions, any abnormal condition that may trigger any arc flash, is there any dust, any corrosion, loose connection, okay. So documentation of these hazards. When a record whether an arc flash hazard exists. So does this task, equipment or condition they are creating any hazard? Yeah, if yes, yes, then you should move ahead towards the arc flash risk assessment. That's a talk about the arc flash assessment, where we talk about the arc flash methodology. Arc flash methodology, we talk about before any work is done, when there is an arc flash, we need to conduct a risk assessment. That is the NFPA 170E requirement. Okay. So what we need to do, systematically identifying the hazard, evaluate the risk, and then decide about the protective measures, like what PPEs are required, what category of the PPEs are required. Okay. So this process, NFPA 170E 130.5, it includes the identification of hazard, what estimation of the likelihood and the severity, determining the protective measures, establishing boundaries, selecting the PPEs, and labeling the equipment. So purpose is here of this one is proactive risk management, not reacting after an incident. That is the main purpose of this. So this is the arc flash risk assessment analysis, focusing on evaluating both. When we talk about the risk assessment, two things comes in our mind, where we evaluate severity and then likelihood. Severity of the injury and the likelihood of occurrence. Okay, that's the main thing. Severity is basically influenced by the incident energy, and livelihood depends upon the task, how often that you are performing the task, what is the condition of the equipment, and what the maintenance history. So that comes to do the risk assessment. So NFPA 70E requires that Or flash studies, what you are conducting, and assessment must be reviewed at least every 5 years because the condition changes, because the things have been changed, because legal requirements are getting changed, the operational things are being changed. And risk assessment, when you talk about, to be also reviewed whenever there is a equipment condition change. If, if there is any SOP gets changed, if there is an updation in your equipment, that's how that you need to update the risk assessment. That's it. And this is ARC risk evaluation, typically NFPA compliant. This matrix, you can see the likelihood as well as the severity. So likelihood, basically it depends upon the task and equipment condition, and then severity depends upon incident energy or the PPE categories. Okay. So risk evaluation, as I said, that it's combination of likelihood and severity. So it helps us to determine whether our risk is high, medium, or low, and accordingly we provide our control measures. So this ensure that decisions are defensible, consistent, and risk-based. That's how it comes in there. So the next is requirements of arc flash risk assessment. When we are talking about the arc flash risk assessment, once the risk is evaluated, requires specific outputs to determine your arc flash boundaries. Okay, what is incident energy exposure, severity of potential energy and PPE required at there. Selected the R rated PPEs, selection of the right PPEs. Okay, based on the incident energy method. Okay, what PPE category method is there? We are going to discuss in the next way. And then you have SOPs, safe working practices, safe operating procedures. Okay, like permit to work system, that how you are going to do. If any kind of an engineering control, reduce risk to acceptable level during the energized work. Okay, apply arc flash labeling. Critical information is available whenever they are working on the point of views. Like if someone is working near to the energized equipment, so information is next to it, labeled it at there, so that you can understand what kind of hazard is there. Okay. So these are flash PPEs, basically based on, as I said, incident energy analysis as well as the PPE category table. These are two. So arc flash is required if the worker is inside the arc flash boundary. Okay. So this is the different PPEs categories, category 1 till 4, depending upon the minimum mark rating and what kind of typical PPEs are required. That is also listed, like arc rated shirt and pants for the category 1, AR clothing and AR balaclava or hood, that is required category 2. But based on the minimum mark rating and incident energy, that's you need to keep it in mind. PPE is required when the worker is inside the arc flash boundary. Must be equal to or greater than the calculated energy. So that's our intention. That's you need to keep it in mind. So that's all, gentlemen, and we are going to have a summary of this session that we discuss about arc flash. What is arc flash? Is basically a severe electrical hazard which is capable of causing the fatal burns, blast, injuries, and equipment damage. So what NFPA 70 clause 3130.5 required, it required a formal risk assessment that before performing any kind of activity on any energized electrical equipment. So the risk-based approach is identify, analyze, and evaluate. You need to understand that what is incident energy and boundary defines. Okay, incident energy must be determined to define the worker exposure. Okay, so accordingly, our grade PP must be selected using the incident energy or PP category method, and engineering controls like administrative control like safe work practices, training, competency of the people, proper labeling must be applied before the relying on PP, because remember the PP is the last defensive line. Okay. So one thing that you need to make sure you understand, our flash safety is proactive, plan, and life critical. That's my message in the end. So thank you so much. I believe you guys have enjoyed the session. If you have any question, please feel free to ask. Thank you.